The last thing I remember before I died was the smell of dust and the sound of silence that impossible, ringing silence that fills your ears right after the world explodes around you. My name is Farhan Karimi. I am 51 years old, and for most of my adult life, I was a cloth merchant in the old part of Tehran, the kind of man who woke before sunrise, opened his small shop near the southern bazaar, and spent his days measuring fabric by the yard while the city hummed and groaned around him. I was not a man of politics. I was not a man of great ambition. I was a man of thread and needle, of haggling over price, of coming home smelling like wool and dye, and kissing my wife Soraya on the cheek before sitting down to a bowl of soup. My life was small in the way that most honest lives are small, filled with ordinary love and ordinary struggle. We had 2 daughters, Nazrin and Layla. My oldest, Nazrin, was engaged to a young engineer from Isfahan. Layla was still in school, always buried in books, always asking me questions I couldn't answer. I was proud of both of them in a way I could never quite put into words. By the winter of 2025, life in Tehran had become something close to unbearable. The economy had been collapsing for years, but that winter it fell off whatever ledge it had been balancing on. The price of cooking oil tripled in 6 weeks. I watched men my father's age standing in bread lines with their heads bowed in shame. My shop was still open, but fewer and fewer people were buying anything beyond the bare necessities. I had started selling off bolts of imported fabric at a loss just to keep the lights on. At home, Soraya and I had quiet arguments about money in hushed voices after the girls had gone to sleep. Not angry arguments, more like the exhausted conversations of 2 people trying to figure out which wall to tear down to keep the fire going through winter. I told her things would improve. She nodded and said nothing. We both knew I was lying, and we both understood why the lie was necessary. The neighborhood itself had changed. Young men stood on corners with hollow eyes. Families I had known for 20 years were quietly disappearing, moving to Turkey, to Germany, to anywhere with a future. My brother had already left for Dubai 3 years earlier and kept calling me to come join him. I always refused. This was my city. This was my ground. I don't know if that was courage or foolishness. Maybe they're the same thing. In February of 2026, tensions that had been building for months between outside military forces and government installations in and around Tehran reached a breaking point. People in our neighborhood knew something was wrong. You could feel it the way you feel weather changing, not a sound or a sight, but something in the pressure of the air itself. On the morning of the 28th, I rose for Fajr prayers before the sun had even suggested itself on the horizon. Soraya was still sleeping. I pulled on my coat in the dark, walked 2 blocks to our neighborhood mosque, and took my place in the back row. The imam's voice was low and steady. Around 40 men kneeled in the dim light. I had just gone into sujud, forehead to the mat, completely surrendered when the world ended. There is no way to describe the sound of a large bomb to someone who has never heard one nearby. It is not a bang. It is a physical force. It is the air itself turning into a fist and hitting you from every direction. Simultaneously, the walls of the mosque buckled. The ceiling came down in massive slabs. I felt something enormous strike my back, and I felt my body break. I knew it in the way you know a bone has snapped, that sick certainty, and then a weight pressed down on my chest that made breathing impossible. I was conscious for perhaps 4 seconds after that. 4 seconds of realizing I was dying. 4 seconds of thinking about Soraya's face, about Nazrin's wedding that would never happen, about Layla's questions I would never get to answer. 4 seconds of the most profound regret I have ever tasted. And then I left. I didn't feel myself rise so much as I felt the weight leave every burden, every fear, every ache in my 51-year-old joints, every financial worry, Every small shame I had ever carried, it fell away in an instant. The way a coat falls from your shoulders, I was above the mosque. I could see the smoke. I could see men running. I could see a figure that I understood to be my own body, half covered in collapsed stone. And I felt absolutely nothing except a kind of peace so deep it had no bottom. I moved upward, not because I tried, because something pulled me the way gravity pulls everything downward with total, effortless certainty. The light I entered was not like sunlight. Sunlight is something you look at. This light was something that looked at you warm and specific and completely personal, as if it had been waiting for exactly you. I moved through it and arrived somewhere I cannot name. The closest I can come is this. Imagine a place where every beautiful thing you have ever seen has been distilled into the air itself, where the colors are not colors but emotions, where the ground beneath you hums with a quiet joy. And then he was there. I want to be careful here, because I know how this sounds. I was born Muslim. I prayed 5 times a day. I fasted during Ramadan. I believed deeply in God. But the figure who walked toward me out of that golden radiance, I knew him immediately. The way you know a face you have never seen but somehow always recognized. It was Isa, Jesus. And he was nothing like the flat images I had seen on television or in history books. He moved toward me with an ease that made the very air around him seem grateful for his presence. His robe was a white that made me realize I had never actually seen white before. Not real white. Not white like that. His eyes were what stopped me completely. Not their color, their depth. When he looked at me, I felt understood in a way I had never been understood by any human being in my entire life. Every mistake, every kindness, every moment of cowardice, every moment of quiet bravery. He saw all of it. And he looked at me with a love that was fiercer than any judgment. I collapsed, not from weakness, from the sheer weight of that love. He placed his hand on the crown of my head and said, "Farhan, get up. You are not here to stay. You are here to see." His voice was not a voice. It moved through me like music moves through a room, filling every corner, leaving nothing untouched. He said, "The world is very close to a great turning. What men have built with pride and forgotten God inside of it will shake. Not because I am angry, but because a tree with rotten roots cannot stand forever, and I love the people living under it too much to let them keep sleeping." He turned me to face what I can only describe as a living map of the world, not a screen, not an image, a living, breathing vision of every city and every nation, every ocean and every mountain. And I could feel the emotional state of each one. The fear, the hunger, the loneliness, the quiet desperation of millions of people who had everything the world said they needed and still woke up every morning feeling empty. He said, "They have built towers to themselves. They have made gods of their comfort and their connections and their cleverness. But the spirit inside each of them is starving, and a starved spirit will eventually cry out whether the person wants it to or not. That cry is coming, and I am asking men like you, ordinary men who have no reason to be believed, to say what they saw." He showed me a date. He showed me the world shifting not in one single catastrophic moment, but in a series of cracks spreading from the foundation upward. The way ice breaks apart in early spring, slowly at first, then all at once. He showed me ordinary people turning toward each other, towards something greater than themselves, because the things they had been leaning on had finally failed them. And then he looked at me again, that look I will carry for the rest of my life, and he said, "Go back, Farhan. Your daughters need their father, and the world needs the story." I woke up screaming, not from pain, though the pain was extraordinary. I woke up screaming because being pulled back into a broken human body after experiencing what I had experienced felt like being pushed back into a cage. The light was gone. The peace was gone. I was on a hospital gurney with 3 tubes in my arm and a doctor shouting instructions I couldn't process. I had been unconscious for 11 hours. I had 2 fractured vertebrae, 4 broken ribs, a punctured lung, and a concussion. The surgeon told Soraya that he did not understand how I was alive. He used the word inexplicable twice in the same sentence. Soraya held my hand and wept and told me she had been saying prayers for 11 hours straight, and I believed her completely. Nazrin arrived from Isfahan within hours. Layla sat beside my bed and held my other hand and didn't say anything, just held on. I looked at my daughter's faces and I thought, this is why I came back. Exactly this. It has been weeks now, and I am still recovering in body, but something else in me is more awake than it has ever been. I am not the same man who walked to the mosque in the dark on February 28th. That man carried his fear like luggage he had forgotten he was holding. This man knows that the fear was never real, that the only thing real is love, and that every moment we have with the people in front of us is a kind of grace we spend our whole lives failing to recognize. People ask me what I believe now. I tell them I believe more than I ever have. I believe in God with every atom I have. I believe that Jesus is real not as a contradiction to my faith, but as a fulfillment of the part of my faith that always knew love was the final language. I believe that what is coming to this world will not be the end. I believe it will be an awakening. The message he asked me to carry is simple enough to fit in one sentence and deep enough to spend a lifetime unpacking. Stop chasing the things that die and start holding on to the things that don't. I am Farhan Karimi. I am a cloth merchant from Tehran. I died in a mosque at dawn, and I came back with a story I did not ask for and cannot keep to myself. If you are reading this or hearing this, I want you to know you are not as alone as you feel. And the love waiting for you on the other side of this life is more real than anything your hands have ever touched. Don't wait until the wall falls to believe that.